What we fundamentally thought about the 2025 bull run is wrong. I'm just going to say it right now, it's completely wrong. And you'll find a lot of influencers and people in high places, including people who head projects, saying this to you still, but it's completely false. What is that? Well, I'm not talking about things like the start or the end of the bull run. Now, I've got videos out there, many videos now, about when I think the start and the end of the bull run will occur. We're not talking about this. What we're talking about is 10, maybe even 100x more important. And that's when you need to be looking to sell your altcoins. Now, this isn't a take profit video. This is us looking for certain trends within the next bull run that will indicate to us when we need to sell certain projects and ultimately how we can take advantage and make more profits based on reinvesting. Now, guys, I cannot stress the importance enough. Now, I made a video a few days ago touching on this very briefly. I'm going to explain to you in the later part of this video how to actually go ahead and find these sort of things and then take full advantage of it. So you're going to want to pay attention the whole way through, because firstly, what I'm going to do is break it down and show you what we're fundamentally missing here and what's actually happening. So let me take your attention now to the CoinMarketCap global market cap chart here. And this is kind of what Bitcoin was going on, or at least the whole market rather was happening back in 2022, 2023, at least current, right? And what we found here was that this occurred, right? We had this like, almost this weird like head and shoulders, okay? So we had this massive run up here, we came down, we retraced. Obviously what goes up fast must come down just as quick. And we had this second run up where everyone thought Bitcoin was going to $100,000, which obviously we know it didn't, it barely touched 70K, if that, right? So what happened here? Well, in this initial run, I think most people thought and knew comfortably that we're going to have a bit of a retracement and we would find a higher leg up after. Fair enough. The issue is, when the altcoins over here ran up, a lot of people actually thought that, you know, Bitcoin's still going to go higher, the whole market will, therefore my individual altcoins will. As I'm going to show you in just a second, this is fundamentally wrong. A lot of altcoins did peak over here. So payment altcoins peaked, Oracle projects peaked, DeFi projects peaked here, and they didn't find the same highs they did over here, even though the whole market gained. And that's going to kind of bring me to the premise of this video. We're not talking about, you know, oh, Bitcoin's going to all run up at the same time and the whole altcoins will follow it sort of thing. And that kind of plays into the alt season sort of waterfall effect. You know, you find all these influencers talking to you and saying to you like, hey, you know, when everyone takes profits on Bitcoin, they throw into Ethereum, then they flow into the large caps, and then they finally flow into, you know, smaller cap altcoins, particularly micro caps. And we have this whole run. And while that still somewhat plays out on a very weird time frame, it jumps around, what we're actually missing here is something far more important. And what that actually is the narratives, okay? So let me explain what I've created here for you. And then again, I'm going to show you how to actually take advantage of it and find these things before they happen so you can make money. Because, as I'll explain to you right off the rip, as we can see here, for those of you who kind of thought that this initial, by the way, the Bitcoin on all of these charts is in this orangey color and the project in question is in this blue overlay color, okay? So just kind of give you the heads up here. And what I kind of did was track all this data from the 1st of the 1st, 2019, so well before the bull run even started, before the even halving happened, right up to current date, okay? And I've kind of put them all in order so that the tip of the Bitcoin run is all exactly in line. So that gives you some indication here. And what I kind of pointed out was, had you waited for Bitcoin to hit the X target that all these influencers were telling us, you know, 100K, or even if it was just going to go higher, we would have actually missed the run and the most profits possible on payment altcoins. So we can see, now I haven't included all the payment altcoins here, of course, and I must admit, at least off the rip, XLM and XRP are probably more connected than what most people would like them to be. But essentially, we can see that they both peaked. They outperformed Bitcoin and actually the whole market at the very, very start of the bull run in that first run up, okay? And if you were someone who held onto the belief of, hey, if I just hold my positions here until the next leg up, until everyone thinks, you know, the whole market's going to go up, what happened? Well, again, you would have been pretty well holding your tokens till now, or at least wouldn't have taken full advantage. And there actually is ways we can try to find this so that we can obviously take profits out. And if you had, right, if you had taken most of your profits off the table up here, you could have very well easily reinvested into other altcoins, narratives that would have, you know, benefited from this next leg up, okay? So you can see what's happening here. We're trying to make the most amount of money possible. And might I say, remember, this is in a period of about 4 years. So the very, very little time frames here are actually like weeks, okay? So we're not talking about the tip here to the tip here being like a couple months, right? So it's a long time frame we're looking at here. And so this is what you'll see in a second. A lot of projects do peak at certain times, but they all have little micro run-ups per narrative. Very important. Let me continue. So what about layer ones? Well, let's have a look here in purple. So in most cases, Bitcoin will still drive the general sentiment And to some degree, the altcoin waterfall, which is this, will still play out. However, I must say, again, following the narratives is far more important. Don't trust this. Anyone sort of screaming this to you is just talking nonsense. At least if they live and die by that, okay? It's definitely not what the goal is here. And so what I say is the narrative bandwagon in some cases doesn't always play out, okay? So we'll use the example here of Near Protocol, okay? Because negative news on an individual project will obviously mean it doesn't boost up with other projects versus if, it has positive news as well, it might peak at a random time, okay? So we must remember this. Now, obviously we're going to ignore the starting of projects as well. These are always quite skewed. What we're looking at here is, again, lining up the charts and actually kind of pinpointing when these narratives actually happen. So XDC, HBAR, Algorand, ADA, they all had the exact same run, okay? Now, by the way, for those of you who are thinking, why has he picked these projects? I just randomly picked them. I didn't choose to pick these based on what actually fit my narrative, no pun intended. I actually just did it just based on random projects, okay? So as you can see here, I'd like to briefly interrupt this program with a very special announcement. Guys, if you wanted to support all the hard work I put into making these videos for you, then there's 2 links down below I'm going to suggest you take a look at. The first is a sign-up link to BitGet, which is one of the best exchanges in the space. These guys have a $300 million user protection fund and proof of reserve, so they're one of the safest exchanges and is the one I personally use for all my crypto investments. And for you non-traders out there, for you guys like me who prefer to invest and acquire the most important information and from the most reputable sources, then Token Metrics have also sponsored this channel, guys. They've offered you guys a free subscription to their basic plan, which is typically worth $20 a month or basically $200 a year. So please, if you take your investing seriously and want the most up-to-date information, go check out the links down below, guys. I've got you covered, and thank you for supporting me. Now, with that said, back to the video. Well, if you took out your money in the payment narrative in this first run up, you could have then reinvested into these sort of projects on the dip and then obviously made more profit here on layer ones because the layer ones made more profit the second time around. Okay, as you can see here, they're all the same, right? They all pretty much happen at the same damn time. It's kind of freaky, right? So we come down here and obviously Near Protocol, again, anything could have happened. It could have been because it was a newer project. It could have been because it was bad news. It could have been because of any sort of reason. And as you can see over here, positive news means the whole market's sort of crashing, yet Near Protocol is pumping. So you do have those outliers, and in a second, when I show you how to take advantage of this, we're going to try to find those outliers and not judge a narrative based on that. It's very, very important we point those out early on. Now, next we have oracles for an example. Now, positive news that is to attract outside investors is important to find because that's, again, when random spikes will happen, which again is why it's important for us to find projects that we can at least, research 5 to 10 minutes every day. And that's what I pretty much tell anyone that buys a one-on-one consult with me. I say to them, look, you might have 20 projects. Well, okay, sweet. You need to spend at least 5 minutes per project per day in a bull run to run through things like the Twitter, Medium, any sort of AMAs they have or podcasts, they have on their blog, for example. You have to go through every day and find this news because if you can isolate that news, you might be able to take advantage of particular runs because, again, it ebbs and flows depending on the individual project plus the narrative, all right? So this, of course, is important to look at roadmap events that are not just going to attract the internal investors, but are going to be so important that attracts everyone else. Point in case, XDC recently pumped up like 80% because it had some massive positive news, brought the whole market in, okay? That is what we're looking for here. And as you can see with oracles, right, we had a small little bump here. So Chainlink and Band over here, they actually had a little pump. Now, obviously API 3 wasn't out at this point, and File Network was probably too young. It still obviously benefited from a little pump over here, right? But they have multiple different seasons, okay? And so again, when did the Oracle season really pop off? Well, actually it popped off towards the end of this first pump here. So obviously you can see it over here, right? Again, Bitcoin over here. Bitcoin, this one started a little bit earlier for API 3, and this one again was a little bit later for Filer. So they all more or less happen at the same time, but of course we have to remember projects are individuals. It is kind of funny how it works because they all do tend to happen at the same time, but there is sometimes a few days, if not a week in between, when they all actually peak. So again, we're still looking at, huge multiples in a few days here. So in a bull run, this is all going to be very, very noticeable, okay? So that's one thing to look at. Again, we come over here to IoT. This is a very important thing I want to introduce you guys called sub-narratives, all right? So what happens here is we have the primary narrative, right? This sort of pinkish color here. So IoT obviously benefited from the first part of the sort of run-up, but also what it did was I dragged down the layer 1 box here. So that's exactly, literally just dragged straight down, no changes. And you can see here, both these projects had a little pump here from the layer 1 narrative as well. Why? Because, well, obviously VeChain's layer 1, And IOTA is a layer 1, technically speaking. It wasn't really back then, but it is planning to be that. It is known for that. And so what do I say here? Well, both IOTA and VeChain are classified as layer 1s. Again, IOTA will definitely soon be. So here's an example of that. Sub-narratives also push the price of a project as well. Now, the velocity, at least how fast that runs up and how important it is, does depend on how well known that altcoin is for that sub-narrative. So again, primary narratives, in this case, it's IoT. Sub-narratives, what else are they known for? Not as prominently, but what else are they known for? Layer 1 networks, okay? So example, no one's expecting HBAR to skyrocket from a DeFi narrative, even though it supports dApps, right? It's going to benefit from things like a layer 1 narrative, okay? So it's very important you understand these things as well. And gaming, I'm not going to go over this as well. You guys can see gaming had a very, very late pump in the end part of the bull run, okay? So a very, very late run up here. Damn, Gala literally just went parabolic over here. IMX, Engine, so on and so forth. But what I kind of point out for DeFi, again, DeFi had a run up in the first part, is that the benefit of selling when you can obviously find the narrative, at least peaks in the first part of the run, is that you can reinvest your profits down here, and then obviously on the retracement, and then obviously in the next part, you can invest in something like obviously gaming over here. Okay, so you're just compounding. Yes, you're paying more tax, but you're still making more money. So now, I don't want to hear anyone down below say, hey, what about tax? You will still make more money doing this than you would have before, okay? You just get taxed more, so it is what it is. And so here's how you find and track the narratives, right? So obviously, again, you can have multiple different narratives. These are the narratives I've ranked. I'm going to give you guys this sheet for free down below, and I've ranked them out of 10. So you definitely can combine these. Again, you have primary narratives and sub-narratives. Don't overestimate your narratives either. Don't think, hey, VeChain, so DeFi on it, it's got NFTs, it's got gaming, it's a supply chain, it's got IoT. And then you start convoluting the message here, and that's when you get lost in this whole narrative thing. What's its primary narrative? What is it known for? Keep it at that. Sub-narratives, you might be able to make some money on that as well, okay? It's kind of like looking for gold. That's the analogy I always use. And so narratives are categorized as what an altcoin essentially is, and is something that the mass market should be able to associate it being, okay? For example, again, using HBAR here, you wouldn't kind of expect HBAR to pump up in price from an AI narrative, even though it leverages AI to some degree. Contrarily, you would say that Flux, right, has a storage narrative that is a primary narrative, even though its sort of main/primary use case is distributed cloud computing, because it is something that Flux is well known for, distributed computing and storage. Now, again, these are what I call primary narratives. Now, once you've found the primary narratives, you can then spot when there is a narrative season based on those particular altcoins gaining market dominance. Keywords: market dominance. We'll look more into this in just a second. So just remember, guys, many altcoins overlap many seasons, which is why it's wise to assess as many altcoins as possible, especially having a diverse range of altcoins that range from the sole or primary narrative to one of many primary narratives. Again, like Flux. Flux has 2 primary narratives. If we look at HBAR, it has one main primary narrative, which is layer 1. And then it has the very, very small sub-narratives that you might be able to squeeze in there. For example, render network, right? It's distributed computing, all right? Graphics computing. However, it's also it's got a very powerful sub-narrative, which is gaming and AI. It's got nothing to do with it, right? It helps for render for games, and it has an AI aspect in it, but come on, right? It's not its main purpose, right? It helps with that. No, it's not for gaming necessarily. You can use it for anything. So these are very powerful sub-narratives. You can probably always wrap that into a primary narrative, because remember, what we're trying to do here is think about your competition, your peers around you, the market. Get into their mind, right? Think like they think, and you will become wealthy because you can predict what they're going to do, essentially, right? Now, once you start to see market dominance growing on the entire narrative, it's pretty much like a fish biting on the end of the hook, right? Now, it's always good to assess altcoins individually rather than the entire narratives at times. This is because news may inflate the dominance of one or two altcoins, altering the entire narrative. So we'll see in a second. You got to come in, have a look at the projects, not just look at the whole narrative, and I'll show you why in a second. And again, does Google Trends yield any helpful results? Let's do this. I'll give you one example down here, but let's fly through this very, very quickly and show you what I mean. And there's 2 things we can do on CoinMarketCap that are going to help us here, right? You must make an account on CoinMarketCap. The first thing is click categories on the main page here and go through this, right? So for example, let's just go Control F and type in gaming. And so type in gaming over here. So we're coming to gaming, right? And so the thing with gaming is what we're going to look at, or at least observe from this initial page, and keep in mind, be careful of using this page only, like this particular view, because the thing with CoinMarketCap, they're just grouping a whole bunch of projects with one another. Like some of these projects have no real weight class, as we'll see in a second, in particular gaming itself, okay? So we can see there's 192 gainers and we can see 160 losers. So what I typically say is when this percentage here, when this goes up to like 95%, so the majority of these projects are gaining and the rest of the market isn't really up there as well, you can probably safely say that, hey, look, most of these projects are gaining right now. There's a good chance we're in some sort of narrative, okay? Also, a key indicator here is the dominance, the market dominance overall. So is this dominance going up? And if so, by how much? Okay. And again, it's very skewed on this because we can see over here with like injective ecosystem, it's just like all over the place. CoinMarketCap just added a whole bunch of random narratives in. Look at this Poker Foundry Red Kite. Like what even is that, right? So what we're doing here is going to gaming itself and actually have a look at the project I've listed. Now, what I tell people, and we're going to show you in a second, probably a better way to do this is to create your own watch list. And so what I'll do is, if you don't know the gaming altcoins already by yourself, naturally, by just knowing the market, you can just come here, add the top like 5 or 6 altcoins that are in this, and then add any other altcoins you possibly can with the inclusion of probably some smaller caps as well. This will give you a nice range so that you're not just finding like the top projects, sort of going up in price, and you can also compare that with the lower cap projects as well. So it adds this nice little balance. And so obviously you can come in here, of course, and then figure out, which altcoins are actually performing. Are 1 or 2 or 3 altcoins kind of carrying the whole narrative? And if so, then maybe we're not in altcoin season. But this isn't what I wanted to show you guys primarily. What I want to really show you today is something far better, and that's going into watch list and creating your own watch list, particularly called like gaming, right? So you can add your own watch list down here. I've already done that for you. So we've got a gaming altcoins, for example, here, and we'll just go ahead and add again the top 5 or 6 from that list, or at least the ones and then a whole bunch of smaller ones at least, and then in between that you're looking at least, right? All we can do here is then go more, or customize rather, and then go down to where it has dominance and click apply changes. And what we're doing here is actually we're sorting these projects through their own individual market dominance. Now, market dominance is a very important metric to look at. Why? Well, essentially, when a project is gaining market dominance, what that tells us is it's beating the whole market. It's not just going up in price with the market. Dominance means it's actually outperforming the rest of the altcoins. So when you start to see these projects actually beating the market, as in gaining dominance, and this is something you're going to have to come back in every single day and have a look at yourself, I would really suggest you guys actually have a journal of this. What you can then do is go, okay, well, these projects are gaining and gaining and gaining. Something is going on here. Now, again, I have some more indicators in this instance. We'll have a look in just a second. And one such of these is a portfolio. So I would say in combination with that watch list, what you really should do is create a portfolio and then come down here and create your own portfolio specifically for that narrative itself. So in this case, gaming, okay? And all you're trying to do here is just add the projects. Don't add in that you've bought any. What I've done here is add in just one holding. So one Axie Infinity, one ApeCoin, one Magic, one Nakamoto game, so on and so forth. Average buy price is 0. I'll show you how to do that in just a second here. So we're going here, let's just add IMX, for example, Immutable X, go quantity 1, when we haven't bought that for a single penny, and then add transaction. It'll add it, and then what it can do is, when this starts to be picking up, if you do this now, in the bull run, you'll see this historical trend chart here begin to grow and grow and grow. Now, of course, this will go up with the market itself. Fair enough, I understand that. But the really important thing we're looking for here is when the overall market itself is sort of asymptoting and these projects are continually rising, something is up. Okay, now we can't sort this through market dominance, at least from what I've found. And so what we'll kind of do here as well to support all this information we're gathering, okay, well, maybe we are in a market, maybe this narrative is picking up because what we're seeing here is, these projects are outperforming the market through what we've saw before. There's more gainers than losers. And obviously this trend is beating the overall trend. What we can do here is go into Google Trends itself, right? Hit explore and then type in a search term. So in this case, our search term, make sure it's worldwide, can be crypto gaming, simple. And we can compare that to crypto, right? Now, this won't work for every narrative, I must admit, okay? And this chart over here will show the interest, okay? So right now it's quite minimal, but in a bull run, when gaming does pick up, and it definitely will, it'll be one of the best performing narratives, you will see this blue trend start to rise and rise and rise, okay? And then you can go ahead and compare this with other trends, crypto IoT, crypto metaverse, crypto layer 1, so on and so forth, and just see how that compares. And so what I'll get you guys to do lastly, and this is super important, is to check a social metric website called Lunar Crush. Now again, this tracks predominantly things like social engagement levels, okay? You do have to create an account and I highly suggest you do. I'm not sponsored by these guys. I've been using them for a long time now. And what you want to do is come to the homepage once you've created an account and you'll come to a page. It won't look like this because you'll have the default filters on here, but I want you to go to top left-hand corner and press filter, remove all the filters up the top here and do exactly what I've done here. So add market cap in an order, 1 hour percent, 24 hour percent, 7-day percent, 24 hour volume, and social engagements. You want to click save. And what we're looking for here is the projects that have gained the most in the 7 days. So we'll click 7 day and it'll drop it down from the highest gainers to the lowest gainers essentially. And we're going to go through this and essentially try to find projects that are gaming altcoins or specific to that narrative. And in this case, you might scroll through here and in the bull market, we're going to have 100% gainers from microcap altcoins, so on and so forth. So what I will tell you to do is look for social engagements over on the right-hand side here, okay? So we're looking for social engagements. What ones are up the most on the 7 day? Also, what ones have the highest possible market cap? Not like hundreds of millions, but at least above $1 million, because this will indicate to us that, maybe this project actually has gained a significant amount because of a certain narrative, not because it's a micro cap, okay? So the higher the market cap, essentially the better. But again, we're not trying to go too high here. For example, a $54 million market cap is quite good, up 80%. Sweet, 24-hour trading volume is quite high. There's a lot of actual demand coming through here, and there's 458,000 people that have engaged with it socially. And that means I would click into this project, at least go back on CoinMarketCap, have a look what it is. Is it gaming? Make a quick note. Yes, one gaming altcoin, so on and so forth. Yes, this is so damn tedious, but we're talking about your financial freedom here. I mean, look, if you can't afford to do this sort of stuff and at least track this in a bull run, I'm going to be doing it, so I probably will post it on the channel. But I'm telling you right now, guys, this is mission critical. This is like Redcon 1. You have to do this. You can't rely on the fact that, hey, Bitcoin's going to go up and all the altcoins are hopefully going to go up at the same time, at the same price, and we can all just sell at once. That won't happen. You will be left like the poor payments example before, where you end up holding off, not buying at all-time highs, and then having to sell at those next lows. Okay, so keep that in mind, guys. I want you all to succeed. I don't know why some people think that I'm in this for all the wrong reasons. I literally don't have to share any of this. So please, if you have enjoyed, if you thought this was useful, hit like on the video. Also subscribe, because I do 2 videos every single day, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next one. Take good care. Talk to you soon. Bye.